Hey, welcome everybody. It's Talking Niagara. It's July 11th, 2025. Yep, end of another week, Friday. Okay, so welcome, Mike. Welcome, others, and have a great weekend. The weekend starts here on Talking Niagara, 7 a.m. Friday morning. Every Friday morning, weekend starts here, doesn't it? All right.
Yes, we are the purveyors of a happy weekend, even
Yeah.
though we may talk about some pretty bad stuff.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Ontario colleges are cutting nearly 10,000 jobs, and in some respects, this doesn't surprise me because we've had the federal closing of the tap of international students. Although there's still international students here, they're just not letting everybody in. There was kind of probably, I guess, hundreds of thousands of students, and that's probably an exaggeration coming in. But it almost seemed as if we were just too open for international students instead of
Oh,
being internet. What should have happened is we shouldn't have had classes that were built around international students. We should have had two or three international students in each class.
well, the problem was it was a big money make.
Yeah,
Bring in as many outside students as you can. And we found that that process was very much abused.
yeah,
And that the students themselves that were coming in from overseas, very many times, did not really qualify much for this. But the fact that the colleges are laying 10,000 people off tells you how unsustainable
that
that
was. Yeah,
whole approach was in the very
yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
It
absolutely.
became the colleges became totally dependent on foreign students that pay much more in tuition than native born Canadians. And it just says 600 programs were canceled or suspended over the last year.
Yeah, yeah.
And what are these programs? They're fluff programs. I think a lot of them. I think
They
it's
were, yeah, they were programs that really should not have, they should not have had on the thing because if all of the attendees are international students, it's a dead program. It's not a program you should be covering.
yes, and it was a bad program to begin with because
Yeah,
we opened up our doors to a
and
lot of
and you
foreign
and I
students.
always, and you and I are always the first speaking people speaking out about job losses. But on this particular case, I think we predicted it about a year and a half or 2 years ago, didn't we?
Yes, the whole thing was completely unsustainable because it was so much of it. Like, I mean, if they're losing 10,000 workers in the colleges,
Yeah,
that tells you the dependency on foreign students.
yeah,
And it doesn't
oh
really
yeah,
mention that much in the article, but it just says like this whole wave of students coming in, and we find all kinds of abuses. We found coconut colleges opening up in strip malls, that kind of thing. But I would like to bring attention to the other victims that were the students that came over here.
yeah,
Now, each one of them was in anticipation of staying here. What if they believed that if they went to college here in Canada, then they would get a green light basically just by coming here as a student to be
yeah.
able to stay here and to live here.
And it's
And
always been the long expectation of the majority of foreign students and the old way of doing it, because that's what would happen. You'd be the foreign student in the class and you'd be able to hang around afterwards.
yes, and that was the expectation of
Yeah,
these poor students and their families. I
yeah,
talked to an Indian girl, uh, was last summer, and she was upset because she had to go back home. And her family has spent $63,000 getting her over here with the expectations as once she got through her schooling, she could stay here.
yeah,
Well, she couldn't. So I asked her what she had taken, and it was hospitality. And a whole and several young Indians that I talked to, asked them what their course was, and it was hospitality. Well, these are not essential things. Like
Yeah. If you
somebody
were
came
coming
over
for
here,
STEM,
if somebody came over here and went into engineering,
yeah, yeah. If
and
you're coming into a STEM course, that's a different matter, right?
yeah,
Science,
they'd be
technology,
scooped up.
engineering, and management.
Or if you went into any kind of course and you were in the top level
Yeah,
of that course. I'm
yeah.
not so sure that would apply to hospitality, but even
No,
management or
hospitality.
accounting or
Yeah,
any of that.
hospitality is like a nothing degree, isn't it?
Yes. Now, one fella that got over here, he wanted to jump on something that would allow him to stay here. So he decided, well, he'll go into welding, become a welder, because the country needed
Yeah, fair.
tradespersons at the time. So I
Yeah,
don't know. Like he came over, and a lot of them come over on tourist visas. Now, I was talking to somebody earlier on that they had their house that an Indian or South Asian bought a house close to them, and everybody that came in there to renovate it were South Asians. They didn't have a company truck or anything like that. They were working. I expect under the table.
yeah. Well, actually, that was the same as I'm doing a job for somebody who's a lawsuit for somebody, and that's exactly it. His workers got replaced by under the table workers, foreign workers.
Yeah, and so we find that so you're going to have renovations done in the city without proper licensing or whatever the requirements are required, et cetera, et cetera, and especially major things. I mean, you might not have vapor barriers in the. We might have a nice wall, but you might not have very vapor barriers. You don't know what you're getting. So and of course the forever story of seven Uber drivers living in a basement still exists,
Yeah,
and
of
a
course.
lot of these people came over as students on student visas. There are tourist visas and student visas. Many people came over. We found that many people came over on student visas, but never went to school. They didn't show up to go to school.
Yeah,
They paid whatever they had to the tuition and never attended classes. So the government really messed up. Did not think ahead of time, and this was really put us all in a big problem because the universities and colleges absolutely took advantage of the amount of students coming from
yeah.
offshore to make
And
money, but the government the government should have known or didn't think that this could be an abused system,
yeah,
and it drove up housing prices. It put strains on our healthcare system. This is not the students' fault. This is the government's fault
yeah,
for putting us in
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
Now they've
yeah,
reversed course, and now these colleges, now all these people who had jobs in the colleges, 10,000 of them are not
yeah.
going to have
And And OPSEU President JP Hornick has said this is actually the biggest layoff of jobs across Canada, outside, even larger than the Hudson Bay, which laid off 8,000 people across Canada.
Yeah, it's a kind of a mini disaster,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
But it was a disaster that was going to
It was
happen.
avoidable if it wasn't if if that whole international student crisis had been alleviated in the first place more than 2 years ago, we wouldn't be here.
Yes, if it had been planned better,
Yeah,
the whole idea that Canada wants one third of its population to be born outside of the country meant that there were going to be open doors to many students, and the expectation, even among a lot of the government, was a lot of these people were going to stay. Well, that's not sustainable. It's not, and it's also really not fair to those people that come in through the ordinary immigration channels. It's a way of getting around that, and we will have a lot of students from all over the world still here. We're gonna try to get rid of them,
Yeah.
and they aren't going. So it's going to be a continual problem. But in any case, um, and this is a sad day because a lot of people lost their jobs because of mismanagement, government mismanagement of the system. They let this thing go way too out of hand, and now if they had done it if they'd done a good job in the very beginning, we would never be in this particular place. It's the same as our immigration. When
Yeah.
it went sky high, we had to reduce it by 20%, and that's real immigration, the normal immigration. The immigration we were able to sustain before the Trudeau government was sustainable. We brought in, I don't know, about 350,000 people a year. That was very sustainable. But when the Trudeau government came in, they upped that, and it was like 500,000 a year. That was not sustainable, and it caused grief and problems. And now, when you have young Indian students that came over here, or any from anywhere in the
Not
world,
just India, anybody, right?
the reason why I mentioned India because they had a whole sort of
Subculture.
program in
Yeah.
India to get as many people over here as possible. They would have agents and people,
Yeah.
you know, okay, your kid only got grade 8, but don't worry about it. With that X amount of money, we'll get him in there. We'll get him into as a resident, and then he can stay in Canada. And so many of them came
Those
with that
programs, those
expectation.
programs are probably not real. They were just taking advantage of they were people taking advantage of making money and using a program that was quite lax.
Well, even if they did very well in the program, let's say they did hospitality, which seemed to be a common one around here. Even if they did, how many graduates of hospitality could the local tourist industry absorb? How many?
Not many.
You
Pretty
know,
well, right?
you yeah, the hotels or the tourist industry would look at maybe the top 5 or 10% and say, okay, yeah, maybe we could use them, but all the others. So you've got 100
Yeah.
hospitality graduates, and there's one job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole idea was not sustainable. If they wanted to focus on students to stay here, they would have done it in critical areas of computer programming or many other things that they could have done to take management, accounting, banking,
Yeah.
those high end
So it
ones,
should have been the STEM.
engineering.
We should have thought about STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and management.
Yeah, so if you've got somebody that comes over and takes a philosophy course in university, yeah, that's pretty good. But unless you're going to be a philosophy teacher, philosophy professor, or even just a teacher, you're
Yeah.
the country
Yeah.
doesn't need it. The
Yeah.
country doesn't need it. It's not going
Well,
to add to the.
neither does their original country.
Pardon me.
Neither does their original country need that.
That's the problem. And
Yeah.
so yeah, just to get into Canada and now because that was so poorly managed and based on unrealistic ideological goals, we now have this complete correction
Yeah.
that are putting a lot of people, students and workers, all in a real bind
Yeah.
because it wasn't gradually uh, it wasn't gradually initiated, and it got out of hand, and so the backlash will be sudden and huge. It's not layoffs a little here, a little there. It's 10,000 all at once. So
But
there's
again,
10,000 people without work in Ontario today.
and that basically the union is saying that the claims against the claims by the province are baseless.
Well, of course they're going to say that,
And
but the bottom line is money, money,
yeah,
and the Ontario government has claimed that it's put enormous amounts of money into the educational
and
facilities.
of course the ministry has traded insults as well.
Yes, they're saying, well, this is not true. We have
Yeah,
put an incredible amount of money into the universities and colleges, 2.1 billion, and et cetera, et cetera.
yeah,
The 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 one main focus, of course, is it was unsustainable. It cost a lot, and it really wasn't doing a lot of favors for a lot of people. Like you, advanced education is a great thing, but I mean, when I was in Sir Stanford Fleming, a very popular one was criminology. Everybody thought they were going to be, forensic police officer or something like that, and almost every one of them, uh, if they did graduate, uh, didn't get any jobs or were mall cops. But I did know one person that did very, very well in criminology, but they were the top of the top, the very
yeah.
highest. So they got into the prison systems and stuff like that, and the higher end jobs and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But that's one exception of many, many.
Well, criminology is actually criminology is a degree that has a lot of is good background, but it's a background that leads to other types of courses. Right? It would be advised to understand something about criminology, for example, before going on and doing a law degree, and you might well do it before going on and doing politics degree.
Well, and the colleges sell their courses um, sort of unethically. They say that if you take this course, it will lead it will lead 70% of the people who take this course will get a job. But when you actually get into the course, it's only the first course. So if you, for instance, take forestry, let's say you take
Yeah,
forestry and get through it, and then that says, well, that only gets you halfway there. You have to take the next course.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
graduates we're talking about who took the full forestry thing, which is, 6 years. And you took the first two, now you got to take another two, and those people will get 70%. But if you do just take the college level without this other add-on, so it's deceiving the way they advertise uh,
Yeah,
what your learn
and that's on the
what
colleges.
your job prospects will be.
Yeah, that's on the colleges and on the professions involved.
Sure, they just want a lot of colleges and universities want to make it easy entrance for the first year because they know they're going to get a massive dropout rate.
Oh yeah,
So what they do is they make it easy to get into the college so they can get your first year's tuition, and then once they have it, then they know that a good amount of those people will never carry
well,
on because they were never qualified in the first place. But
and
they
not
did get your first year's tuition. So
yeah, and not but that's actually something that goes on for quite some time anyway. Because my law degree, there was on the first ever lesson lecture of that law degree when the dean of the law school spoke, and then there was a law lecture. There was standing room only this was a place that was designed for about 150 students in an auditorium, and there were probably at least 250 students there,
yes, so
and
there's
hardly 50 made it through the entire course.
well, my son did uh, computer science at Brock. They started out with 150 people, and about 12 graduated.
Yeah, yeah.
12, very very low numbers, less than 1/10 of those who began the program. And the
That's
fact was, those people who began the program started to try to find other things to get into after the first year, because it's very, very clear that they were underqualified to take the course in the first place.
yeah. Yeah, but even an underqualified person who's got a lot, who's got the guts to go forward with it, can actually, get to the end of the course.
Rare.
I Grant.
Most people waste money in their first year of university in the wrong place. Uh, that's very much, or a
That's
considerable
true.
amount.
That's true. And
And
many of
like
them
I said
transfer.
before, the colleges actively try to minimize the amount of qualifications they need so they can get a big boost in money in their first year. And then those students then drop out and then later try to find a different course. But the fact of the matter is, they were dangling the carrot.
Yeah,
And
and it's not just here. It's where Europe does it as well. European colleges
of
do it.
course, these
Yeah,
are businesses, aren't they?
yeah. That's what they've become. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
the same thing. You might as well go to a car lot. They're gonna, this is the car you can afford, but look at this beautiful one. Look how cool it is. And you go and try to, and you buy it, and then you're struggling to pay the payments ever since.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right. Moving on. Lesotho declares a state of disaster amid U.S. tariff uncertainty.
Yes, that country that nobody heard of, all of a sudden a lot of people are hearing about it. So
Yeah,
when Donald Trump says, like Lesotho, like a country that nobody's heard of, not only was it insulting to the country, but it was extremely revealing of how damned ignorant that guy is.
yeah.
And in any case,
Well, unemployment in Lesotho now stands at 30%, but for young people, it's almost 50%.
now earlier we talked about Lesotho, and we found that, let's see if I can find that article now.
And basically, they made a declaration of a state of emergency or a state of disaster because of the tariff situation, and they're basically making clothing more pretty well. A lot of the businesses were making clothing that would have been headed largely to the US.
Well, not exactly, but their U.S. Buyers have suspended their
Yeah,
purchases of garments that are made in Lesotho because they don't know what's going to happen. Lesotho was hit with a 50%, uh, initially a 50% or thereabouts tariff. So anything coming into the country of the United States, the consumer would have to pay 50% more. It has subsequently dropped to 10%, but of course, with Trump tariffs, nothing is set in stone. It could tomorrow go back up. When we first initially talked about Lesotho, we talked about the diamonds from Lesotho going
yeah,
into the United States. It did not mention the textile industry
yeah,
then,
yeah.
which is probably more important because it
Oh, yeah.
it
Because
employs more people.
Yeah, exactly. Diamonds are going to employ a small number of people, whereas things like textiles will employ larger numbers, much larger numbers.
Yeah, and you would think like another country could pick up. So let's say Canada wanted to buy it, but apparently a lot of the stuff has to go through the states to get here because of uh, the networking of transport. And once it gets into the states, the tariff is put on it, and then if it goes from the states into Canada, it still holds the tariff that came
Yeah,
into the states. Because and that's I think uh, a Canadian who was using U.S. metals or metals from a different country. Anyway, whatever. There was a
yeah,
Canadian who's doing work that sold stuff to the U.S., but his material had to come from the U.S. first, but it came from offshore of the United States. So the tariff would be put on the stuff coming into the U.S. and there after that would be then after that sold into Canada, but the tariff would be applied. Uh,
Yeah.
so the distributor would be in the United States would have to pay the tariff of 50%, and then it would have to put that um, tariff on or increase the price and then sell it in
Yeah,
Canada. So
it would almost be better that they've got to move their whole trade, lock, stock, and barrel, to somewhere like Europe or Australia or something.
yeah, but that's going to be very, very difficult
Oh, of
for
course, of course.
a very poor country. And they're
Yeah,
not only that, they're hit by the USAID cutbacks. And Lesotho, it says here, Lesotho was one of the biggest beneficiaries of the U.S. is African Growth and Opportunity Act. AGOL is called. AGOA is called,
I go. Yeah,
which gives favorable trade access to some countries to promote their economic growth. Well, that's what the United States did. That's what other countries do too. Sometimes gives a poor developing country a
and
little bit of extra access to the
yeah,
market to help them promote their industries
and
so they
often
can get on
some.
their feet.
Yeah, and often actually, probably where they would naturally be tariffed 10 or 20% or something, often they're getting a way into the market slightly cheaper than many other competitors would.
And if AGOA is not renewed at the end of September, they're looking at another 40,000 losses, job losses, which was disastrous for that tiny country.
Yeah,
So the country that nobody heard of, and the the foolish off the cuff policies of the U.S. have not been well thought out. You don't. Why do you want to hurt a country like that? Why give them aid and help them along and hope and give them special trade status to promote their industries like their garment industries, and then pull a rug out from under them? They
yeah.
have they've developed their industries along with the knowledge that they do have abilities to market their stuff in the U.S. and then they pull a rug out for them and cause instant poverty. What was that? What Mike said?
Mike basically said, time for Canada to write a letter to the US telling them we cannot do business with an unstable leader.
Well, unfortunately, it'd be nice to do, but they're holding most of the cards. Canada just got hit with a 35% across the board tariff through a letter, an angry letter apparently. For some reason, um, this was supposed to not happen because we were in trade negotiations, but evidently someone said got the hackles up of Trump, and he sent a letter saying it's going to be across the board 35% tariff on Canada. This is the guy who made the greatest trade deal of all time with Canada and Mexico, the pearl of all trade deals, and now he won't oblige by it.
Yeah. Okay, and talking about African nations again, Liberia stuck. No, Trump stuck his foot in his mouth about Liberia. He praised how superb the leader's command of the English language was, forgetting, of course,
Yeah,
how
he
uh,
spoke
li-
good English, good English. Yeah.
yeah, and forgetting, of course, the relationship between Liberia and the United States. In fact, Liberia was a place that was founded by freed slaves. So these were African American slaves that were freed, and they were given an opportunity to return to Africa, and they went to Liberia.
Well, a lot of them were rescued
Always
off of slave ships and other things.
that as
So,
well, yeah.
what is Liberia? Liberia is a Western African country that was created by freed or rescued slaves from the early 1800s,
And all
and
of
they
which
were
who spoke English as a common language.
That's right, because a lot of them
Yeah.
came from the United States, and a lot of them speak English with more of an American accent. So when Trump listens to the Liberian president and it's English, very much American accented English, he says, "Oh boy, you got to really, you can speak English really well." Well, the official language of Liberia is English, and it
Yes.
has
What do
been
you
since
expect?
what 1820.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So it's been and it's an English speaking nation, and there's a lot of when you think about it, places like South Africa. They're very good at speaking English in South Africa. In places like
Well,
Kenya, they're
you
very
wouldn't
good
get
at
a
speaking
compliment.
English.
You would not get that same compliment in South Africa because they speak with an Afrikaans accent or a special accent. Some speak with a little bit of an English accent. Some speak with an Afrikaans
Yeah.
accent, and the black population speaks with an accent, a very pleasant one. I would add. It's very nice
Yeah, it's
listening to
sweet.
South Africans
It's a
speak the English
sweet kind of language, but again, some like Kenya, of course, speaks with more an anglicized accent.
language. Yes, so Trump would not compliment them because they had an accent. He would have thought that they didn't speak English well. That's the type of English they speak. But Liberia has more of an American accent. So he's saying, "Oh, you speak English good."
Yeah,
Oh,
what a
boy.
what a dumb statement. Yeah,
What an ignoramus. And
and
Liberia, when asked about this, the Liberians have to sort of backpedal and say, "Oh, we don't take it as an insult, and it was meant in good faith, and all this." And then they go on to say, "Well, uh, this just shows uh, how so many people don't know anything about Africa or other countries." And one of the criticisms that one of the Liberian spokespersons said, or who was asked for an opinion, didn't really blame Trump too much. He blamed the fact that he wasn't briefed on the country before. Now, just about every president wouldn't know every country and
of
the culture of
course,
every country,
yeah,
but you
of
would
course
think
they
they would
wouldn't.
be briefed. They would get a briefing ahead of time. This is
Yeah,
the president of Liberia, and they speak English, and there are blah 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 blah, and give them a quick history of Liberia.
yeah.
The ignorant one, the ignorant supreme
Well, he was
leader.
probably given the briefing. He just didn't listen.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know that whole administration is egocentric and arrogant, and they enjoy being ignorant. If
Yeah.
they don't know, it's not worth knowing. That's their attitude.
Well, and also
Remember
the
in the first administration, Trump called the African countries shithole countries.
Mm,
What an ignoramus!
yeah. And a former president of Liberia has won the Nobel Peace Prize. There you go.
And they still have strong American connections. The whole country was created by American slaves. Now Sierra Leone is kind of like the British counterpart to that. The British tried to take their freed slaves and put them in Sierra Leone. Now both Liberia and Sierra Leone did not really become black colonists. The slaves did not become that successful of black colonists. Well, we saw what happened in Sierra Leone with Charles Taylor and all that. The the these governments, the local people became very resentful from the American freed slaves and the British freed slaves in Sierra Leone. That they became a sort of a uber class, and the locals resented it and overtook them. But the legacy of the English language in Liberia, it still exists. It's
Yeah.
the official language, and their flag even looks like a
Yeah.
U.S. flag.
Yeah. In fact, it's got the same stripe. Well, it's got wider stripes, but very similar to the US flag. It's only got one star on it, but yeah, hey, very similar to US.
The capital of Liberia is Monrovia, which was named after the President Monroe.
Yeah. Yeah, there you
Why
go.
does why doesn't the supreme orangutan know that?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It,
So
but on but I will go back to the one person that is quoted in here in the article. It's a BBC article, by the way, who
yeah.
said that this is sort of very typical of the ignorance of Africa, and this is very very typical of the extraordinary, appalling ignorance of North Americans, particularly Americans, about the rest of the world.
Yeah. And
Extremely.
and the other thing is that so former President, what's his name? Former President Way, yeah, former President George Way. So his son is actually Timothy Way, who plays for the United States. He also plays for Juventus in Italy. So he's actually a well-known soccer player.
Yeah, he's a hell of a good soccer player,
Yeah.
and he's had strong connections to the U.S. and a lot of Liberians have. So right now, uh, and there's a whole bunch of languages in Liberia, but it's like Ghana and Nigeria basically too. Those two states who use English as a lingua franca, because when you have some like 200 languages and just as many dialects of those languages, the one consistent language is English, then that is the language that you learn to aspire to learn if you're going to do business or anything
Yeah.
else. In Cote d'Ivoire or the Ivory Coast is French, and so they would all speak French because they would also have 200 different dialects and languages. So the one constant language would be
Yeah,
English
but that, of
in
course,
those areas.
is true with many former colonial nations. As those like you go to Kenya, and again, two common languages that seem to exist in Kenya is English and Swahili.
Yes,
Right?
the
Those are
Swahili was a language. It was a lingua franca of West African. It was a made up language. It wasn't.
No, it's not
Yeah,
made up language. It's based upon Omani. It's from former rulers of the Omanis who went down there. It's not.
yeah, but it has all kinds of Arabic and everything else, and
Yeah,
it spread. What I meant, it spread along the western coast of
Eastern
Africa,
Africa,
or
Eastern
eastern coast of Africa, and
yeah,
became the lingua franca and
of
the
that
language
area.
of
Yeah,
trade
yeah,
of East Africa.
yeah,
So
and
the
and
Arabs
before
or
Britain came
the
along. Yeah,
Bantus or anyone who wanted to engage in trade would learn Swahili, just
yeah,
like in later times people learned English or French.
yeah, exactly. So but again, there's dozens of different tribes down in Kenya who have dozens of different languages.
Yeah, well, what the Swahili was kind of like Mandarin. Like there are thousands of variations of Chinese,
Yeah,
Cantonese, whatever, but the one main language is Mandarin, and everybody speaks it, and that's kind of like Swahili,
yeah.
right? Is a language and also infused with other languages, kind of like English, a bastard language that sort of is based on Germanic. The very elemental forms of English are Germanic, but then you dump a pile of French into it, you dump a pile of Latin into it, you dump some Norse into it, and you pick up words here and there all over the place, and you've
Oh,
got this
yeah.
basket.
English and German pick up words from different sources when they create new things. Um, you know, it's just yeah, they do differently. Yeah, exactly.
But any case, in like the whole point of it is Trump stuck his foot in his mouth again, demonstrated to the whole world what an ignorant man he is. And this need not have happened. All he had to do was have a briefing. This is Liberia. This is what they
Yeah,
do. This is the source of their economy. And
and this is
they're
their
obviously
history
that
with
are
the
trying.
United States. right? All of that kind of 15-minute briefing you could have given. It doesn't mean to say you know everything about Liberia, but the whole point about a politician is they take that 15-minute briefing. They might not have heard everything, but they've heard enough to know not to put their foot in it.
Yeah, for instance, if the next one coming up is Malawi, right? I know very little about Malawi. I've read about it from time to time, but I haven't retained much in my
Yeah.
brain. So if I'm coming up and somebody's from Malawi and wants to talk to me about trade or security or whatever else, well, I would like to have a good half an hour briefing on Malawi, its history, uh, what its economy is, and all that other stuff, but not the orange orangutan. No, no, the supreme orangutan just comes up sounding like an orangutan.
Okay. So the next one, the
I
next
don't. I don't mean to insult orangutans.
the next one we've got on our list is who killed Jersey milk? It's an interesting one because, in fact, this is talking about Nielsen Jersey milk chocolate bars, but it's not. It's more than that because, in fact, Jersey milk is a high quality milk bar, so milk product that is made from Jersey cows that's higher quality than everything else. And it used to be part of our milk supply chain and is no more.
Well, the Jersey milk chocolate bar
Yeah.
basically and made out of Jersey milk because the Jersey cow has an extremely rich milk.
Yes.
Most of the milk we get is from Guernseys or the other one I can't remember, but Guernseys anyway,
Yeah.
and they are high producing milk cows. They produce a lot of milk, and it's good, pretty good milk. But if you want to get into the real high end milk, you want the smaller cows like the Jersey cow. Jersey cow produces an extremely rich and flavorful milk. This is kind of like the high class. It's like
Yeah, it's about a class thing, right? Because yes, this is the highest class milk product there is on the market.
yes, but it was invented in 1924 in Canada, and it has been a mainstay of chocolate bars. I've known it ever since I was a kid. What you get with a Jersey milk chocolate bar is just really good chocolate and no fancy, no nothing. However, the it hasn't got the flash and panache anymore. People think of it as the old plain old chocolate bar, even though the quality of it's very high. So if you can buy a Mr. Big or something else, it'll have a coating of chocolate on it, and chocolate is the expensive thing here. This is the point they're making.
Yeah,
Coca chocolate is very expensive. If you want to get a chocolate bar, a milk chocolate bar, Jersey milk is a milk chocolate bar.
yeah,
Mr. Big and everything else has all kinds of other ingredients coated with a layer of chocolate.
yeah.
And it's much cheaper to make Mr. Big than it would be to make Jersey milk. Plus, it's not selling, anymore. It's the old fashioned chocolate bar.
I, yeah, and of course, yeah, and of course, a lot of old fashioned has gone, hasn't it?
It's a low value, it's a low volume product that consumes a relatively high production resources. In short, no longer makes financial sense. In order to make a Jersey milk chocolate bar, you have to put a lot of resources into it. Coca, the high end milk that comes from a Jersey cow, and those are expensive. And what you get, the result you get is a milk chocolate bar, right? But people look at that as being a plain thing now. I'd have to say every once in a while I would get one of those just because I enjoyed the chocolate. But I don't very rarely buy a chocolate bar. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
now they also make caramel bars and other things. Um, so they're not going to lose any jobs by this. This is the promise they said, right? That this 100-year-old bar has to be discontinued because it's not selling and it takes too many resources, but we're not going to lose any people. I
That's
hope
good.
they're not lying about that.
I that sounds good, right? When a company's doing that, that's a step in the right direction.
So they're going to concentrate on brands that sell more and
Yeah,
probably innovate more products going forward. But I would say that this is kind of just what happens in the Jersey Milk chocolate bar was good for 100 years.
yeah,
It is no longer appreciated
yeah,
because of the amount of things that people can buy now. Before, when you used to go to get a chocolate bar, there was a limited amount that you could buy,
yeah,
and Jersey Milk was always on the top. So, but now it's just evolution. It makes no longer any sense to make Jersey Milk chocolate bars.
yeah. All right,
Sad, but true.
there we go. Moving on. Um, moving on. Oh, we've actually got a comment upon that one. They probably got H5N HSM1 um,
From poultry, they
from
probably
poultry.
got H5N1
H5N1. Yeah,
from poultry. Who got that?
I don't know. From poultry, I don't know the way you get that, but anyway. Wow, chocolate has changed the taste. Yeah, that's true. I don't. I rarely buy chocolate bars. Don't. Actually, many of the ones, for example, Hershey's, I personally can't stand it.
I I like cow. I don't even know if Roundtree is still out there, but they used to be a big one. But I like Cadbury. I like other ones. But I rarely, it's very, very rarely that I go for a chocolate bar. If I do, I usually try to buy one that's got fruit and nuts in it sometimes. Or a favorite of mine was Mars bar and Snickers bars. They're super sweet. There's a little hard, but if I'm peckish and I think I need a lift, I'll buy a Mars bar or a Snickers bar quite often. I think the last bar I had was a Mr. Big because I was hungry and I was in a corner store and I had a trip, so I grabbed one. And so it's got a lot of filler stuff that's a lot cheaper than chocolate. And chocolate, you're right, is changed because they're putting a lot of additives that aren't milk, kind of a waxy substances and stuff like that. So you really have to look at what the ingredients is, and it's pretty sad that Jersey milk has become isn't selling as much because the quality is very high.
Yeah,
But obviously, we're not too interested in quality, quantity, not quality.
yeah, yeah. And hey, I have to say one of the things that I found is since moving to Canada, and don't be shocked by this one, I can't stand Hershey bars.
Well, Hershey bars weren't that big of a deal when I was a kid growing up because that was more of an American thing. They
Yeah,
came into the Canadian market a little later, but Hershey's never been on my top list. I've always looking
yeah.
for the ones
Well,
that I grew up with. Even like I didn't go for M and M's, I went for Smarties. I
yeah,
didn't go for I didn't go for Hershey. I went for Nielsen's Jersey Milk kind of
yeah.
thing. You know,
Well, again, you
those are the
see,
ones I had.
we can get the Cadbury's, we can get the Cadbury stuff here, and Cadbury's is more the taste that I'm used to, and just
In this
Hershey.
particular case, yeah, and Nielsen, which is this one,
Yeah,
Nielsen.
yeah,
So those are the ones I grew up with. So those are the ones I normally go for.
yeah,
The
quite.
things I remember as a kid.
Yeah,
So Hershey came along. I didn't see too many Hershey bars when I was a kid, and so I don't. Even though Hershey's a huge, they had very similar. Just as an aside, Hershey and Cadbury had very similar beginnings. Cadbury in Britain and Hershey in the United States. They both Cadbury and Hershey were people who employed poor people. In Hershey's case, was orphans. He began an orphanage with a factory that gave good wages. It was part of his moral ideology to help orphan children by giving them a job and a place to live. And in Cadbury, it was the same thing. I don't know if it was orphans as much as
no, I
poor
think
people.
it was actually, I think it was homeless stuff. It was homeless in the first place. He found
Yeah, so
homeless
Cadbury did
people
this.
around Birmingham, and employed them in the Roundtree factory chocolate factory.
Yeah, you see, both these people that were humanitarians in the very beginning. So
Yeah,
I doff my
it was
cap. But of
homeless
course,
people. I could be
that
wrong.
same morality does not exist with a international company anymore.
Mm.
It's just make money.
Yeah, but Cadbury's at the top, because Cadbury's been with me all my life. Of course, I'm used
Yeah,
to
you
that.
come from the old world.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the Cadbury here is just the same as the Cadbury back home.
Well, yeah, and Mars, I think started in Britain too, and then they.
I don't know. There was one of the areas where I talked about this trading estate one time. They have a massive Mars factory there. It produces I think 1 million Mars bars a day.
Let me look it up.
I don't
Well,
know where
that
it came from, but I always thought Mars was American, but still could be wrong.
Mars Chocolate Company. Let me see. It may be American. I don't know.
I always thought it was American, but
Um,
I could be wrong.
it is now a multinational, headquartered. Oh yeah, right since founded in June 1911, headquartered in McLean, Virginia. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
and the Mars bar was
yeah,
something.
I
It's
have to
funny.
admit my knowledge of chocolate bar companies is not all up to snuff. It's like
Well,
chocolate bar companies.
The
Look,
Mars
you
bar was
see what I
where,
did there? See what I did there? I looked it up. That's what Trump
yeah,
could have done when he
yeah,
talked about Liberia.
yeah. You see, the Mars bar was a staple to the Mars company. They made dozens of other things. I never was particularly a fan of the Mars bar, I have to say. Mars bar and me were like, yeah. As like I said with Hershey chocolate, it just wasn't my taste, right?
Well, that's because you don't get the highly refined taste buds of the developed world.
No, I've got highly defined taste buds of the European world.
Yeah.
Where quality matters more than quantity.
Oh, please. Anyway, uh, away from chocolate, what else can we talk about in the
Yeah.
last
Okay.
seven,
So
8 minutes?
there are changes going on to owner-occupied short-term rentals in Niagara Falls. They're putting together a 14-month pilot program for these owner-occupied short-term rentals, and they're looking to change over to that process. The trouble here is it's not going to stop. What you've got is the short-term rentals, the vacation rentals, where basically you as an owner live in the property. You don't really. You apply for a license, and you know you get you get one, your wife gets one, your daughter gets one, but none of them live in the property.
Well, this is the problem, and we've talked about this just a few days ago. Basically, we covered this. It was a proposal that was coming forward, and that proposal was passed that we can start a pilot program of 100 owner occupied residencies for short term residencies occupations for tourists. The limit of 6 people, limit of 28 days, and they want to see what's going to happen, and they're going to have this happen in residential neighborhoods. Now, it there was three of the councilors voted against it on the basis that they could see that this was going to get out of hand or potentially out of hand. Vince Cario was on the fence with it, but eventually approved the pilot program with the hopes that the 1,500 illegal ones get closed down quick. And there's strong regulations. and they promise to have stronger regulations than other cities.
and
Will it open the
well,
will it open the floodgates though? Okay. When you
and
have two
again,
real estate agents in city council that are a part of the Boys and Girls Club, this
no,
the
boys club, old boys club.
Club, this is what you get. Three voted against it. Yes, that's a good. Yeah, yeah, definitely. People who see that they'll sell more houses to negligent, pretend owner occupied places. Quite right. It'll push the housing up,
Yeah,
and that's what
and
it did earlier
at the
on.
end of the day, at the end of the day, it doesn't. There's a market out there for these types of things, and it's about getting the balanced control in there. And I think again, it's to me, it's somewhat of knee jerk reaction going on here.
No, I don't think so because basically this is being talked about and talked about and talked about. This whole business of these homes that are bought then rented out for holidayers has been an issue over and over again.
Yeah, I
The
know.
city bylaw has had difficulty even coming down on bed and breakfasts that are not doing what they're supposed to do. It's a very difficult thing. They had this big sort of blitz on these places last weekend, and they came up with 24 charges for 24 places that were illegal. So they finally did something about it. But this is an ongoing program, and you're going to have a lot of people who think that seniors, the argument is seniors and others whose income level has gone down, and we see this as a common story in Niagara, that they can rent out part of their house for the summertime for tourists, but they happen to live in residential areas.
Yeah,
And the other argument is this will open up the market for people who cannot afford hotels to come into cheaper places to stay if they want a holiday, which they would otherwise not be able to afford. So these are the arguments for it. The arguments against it, of course, is it will be roundly abused, and that people will buy up these places and rent them out and not really be, as you said, owner occupied.
yeah, yeah. And and I don't know. I'm a bit of a cynic on this one. I don't see. I think there's a knee jerk reaction. They're going from one thing to another because one thing I've noticed now is implementing amps as a fine method is the road to doom, in my view.
I Yes, well, we'll have to see because they're going to initiate this pilot program. My worry is once they initiate it, will he be able to pull it back?
Yeah,
Will he be able to cancel licenses and things like that? Is it going to be a growing thing? Um, at one time, I used to live downtown Ontario Avenue. At one time, um, years and years before, people used to do that all the time.
yeah.
Rent uh, a place in their house. Um, but anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
going on for renting out rooms in your house has been going on for years.
there's another thing we should actually talk about quickly is the bubble. Newsteg's come up with a couple of things. One thing, she wanted to have free buses, free bus fare for seniors and youth. Um, she's supposed to be a conservative, and then she went totally social democrat on that one. And but the other thing she did come up with a little more serious was the bubble. She wants to have bubble exclusion zones around city property and places of worship, religious places, to avoid protests in and around them.
um,
Um,
I'm 50-50 on this one because part of me says city institutions, you damn well cannot stop demonstrations outside city institutions. Not now, not ever. Right? People have a right to protest, and they should be doing so outside of City Hall or outside of other city institutions that they believe to have been doing wrong.
Of course.
Right?
So that was a no go right from the beginning. So
Yeah.
Newstag kind of says, okay, I'll drop that part of it, but I want this bubble around religious areas. Now we found that Hindus and Sikhs had a big battle around temple in Toronto some months ago.
Yeah.
Of course, Jewish groups
That also I
have.
that also I understand the logic behind it, but I also concerns me because also religious institutions, you have a right to protest against religious institutions as well.
I
I'm not saying I
but
like the
of
idea of
course
protest.
yeah. So the bubble they're talking about, actually, she looks as if she's worried about violence
Oh, I'm
occurring.
worried about. Yeah, absolutely. I share her concern about violence, but again, we do have the right to protest religious institutions as well.
Oh, sure. Our friend William O'Sullivan, Sully, demonstrated, maybe still is, demonstrated for years outside of St. Kevin's Catholic Church in Welland, where he was abused as a child, a
Yeah,
pedophile, and
yeah,
he set up a demonstration there year after year because he was on the sidewalk. Now, the church property, he may not, that's private property, so you don't go on somebody's private property, whether it's a church or not.
yeah,
A Sikh temple, a Hindu temple, a mosque, you don't go on to those. A Presbyterian church, you don't go on to their property to demonstrate. You can do
yeah,
it from the sidewalk.
yeah. Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can stand on the sidewalk and you can say what you want about said property. You do not put your foot on their pathway into the church or into the temple or
Or
whatever.
impede anybody's progress to get there. But the
Exactly.
problem here is what Newstag wants is bubble zones. So there's a sort of a circumference or a boundary area around religious institutions where you cannot protest
But again,
or
that's got to raise some charter concerns about whether you're right to protest.
yeah. Big problem here is, yeah, I can understand certain groups. Like, for instance, there was a Sikh temple after 9/11. Sikh temple was attacked by people who thought it was a Muslim
Yeah,
mosque,
yeah,
and they didn't know the difference between Sikhs and Muslims. And you're going to get, I understand you're going to get, if there's another 9/11, you might get a whole lot of people demonstrating around a mosque. As goofy as that sounds, because they'll say, okay, you did
yeah.
this.
But
Well, the people in
you
that
see,
mosque had nothing to do with it.
here's where there's a difference. Demonstrate around a mosque if you wish. You cannot bomb a mosque.
Look, 19 of these assailants for 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia. That's where
Yeah,
they were headquartered. So the ideal place to demonstrate is in front of the Saudi Arabian embassy, not the
correct.
mosque.
Yeah, not the mosque. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I know that's a past example, but you're absolutely right. The demonstration would have been correctly outside there, but again, blowing up a church because you believe them to be part of some foreign terrorist action is wrong.
Should be noted that nearly 90% of all victims of Islamism or Islamic extremism are other Muslims.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That
When we
was
see 9/11 and we see 3,000 people killed, you're looking at 30,000 killed and we don't hear about because they're doing their nasty over in the countries where they
well.
live.
the examples I remember one. I don't remember where it was, but there was a car bomb. There was a suicide bomber that blew up a bus, and the suicide bomber was a Muslim. And on that bus, I think it was in Israel actually, but on that bus there was maybe one Jewish person. Everybody else, there was about 30 people who died on that bus, and they were all Muslims.
Well, we see what's happening in Afghanistan right now. The Taliban are a very rigid form of Islam, going back to Sharia law, but they're fighting uh, who is bombing uh, Kabul right now. It's ISIS. ISIS are coming in and blowing up and killing innocent people
Yep.
because they're even more extreme Islamic. So they're victims or other Muslims. So anyway, that should be pointed out there. But the bubble zone, you're running into a real problem here. You police what Lori Lococo brought up was the police have all the things they need to control protests that get out of hand. So
Yep.
when you start putting bubble zones, how big of a bubble zone are you going to get? I think places like mosques and synagogues should be. I think there should be protection, um, sort of, uh, sort of police trained to be able to go to those places quickly and embark quickly to those places because they're more likely to be victimized, like mosques and synagogues. It's just the same person that blows up a mosque would blow up a synagogue. But the demonstrations thing, no. Um, and where have this has happened? The only one I can remember having demonstration outside of a religious institution was the demonstrations that got out of hand in Toronto between a Hindu temple and Sikh demonstrators, or the other way around. I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and obviously one doesn't want them out of any of those sort of things to go out of hand. But isn't that more a policing issue than anything else?
Well, when I was driving up there once, I saw a whole lot of police around. I don't know if it was a Hindu temple or a Sikh temple, but it was uh, it was there to protect
At the
those
same time.
particular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The same generally time. Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
And it was motivated by what was happening in India, not
Yeah.
what was happening here.
And
So,
again, yeah, again, that's something. Again, that's something that's very difficult to control, isn't it?
well, it is, but the idea that the police should be put on alert. Let's say there's a war. Let's say there's Hindu extremists or Muslim extremists kill one another, kill the other, right? You know there will be a flare up probably in the Indian, Muslim, and Hindu community here.
Yeah.
You know those hatreds come over here with them. Same
Yeah.
as the Sikh and the Hindu and all the other things. So I now, of course, the one place you always have to worry about is synagogues because we have, and I'm not worried about uh, Muslims or anyone else attacking the synagogues. I'm more worried about the traditional anti-Semite attacking, and that's what's happened in when synagogues have been attacked.
Yeah.
They have quite often they've been attacked by just your ordinary everyday anti-Semite that has been with us for 1,000 years.
Yeah. And again, I would have to ask in relation to this whole bubble zone generally, how many threats have there been to religious institutions in the Niagara area?
I don't think there's been a whole lot.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think so as well. I believe that as well.
and I would counsel people very much so not to bother religious people in their faith. It's just bad.
Yeah.
Though that is supposed to be a place of peace, and you're supposed to just hang out there. Now, there is a Sikh temple, the place where that guy got assassinated in BC, has a big, broad billboard with a picture of a known terrorist on it, that could motivate anger. You know, that was at a community center, Sikh community center, which included a temple, and they have on it a huge big billboard uh, uh, going for Khalistan, right, baby? And the guy in the center of it is a known terrorist, or a guy that was a known terrorist. So I think if you want to ease the problems, take down that picture.
Yeah, that sort of picture shouldn't be permitted because and there's other rules that already previously apply to that kind of picture.
Yeah,
It's not legal. It's not legal. It's beyond. Be blunt about it. It is not legal.
yeah, and I hate the CBC or the CTV. They never even mentioned that. You had to get another source to find out that right there where the guy's murdered, there was a big, huge billboard with a that had the center person centered on a known terrorist,
Yeah,
Calisthenic terrorist. So that doesn't really wash
yeah,
well, does it?
yeah. No, it does not. It does not. In any case, so we're going to kind of have to pull the plug on it right now.
All right. Without further
Got a
ado, I
couple
bid
of
you
comments.
adieu. What?
Got
Okay.
a couple of comments. Shame what's happening in our country, says Betty. Yeah. Have a great weekend, says Mike. All right. So go.
I'll ditto that, and I will say, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Except, do not forget Gaza. That outrage has continued to happen. Expulsion of those people are in the mind of Netanyahu, and he'll lead the orange orangutan around by the nose because we see how totally ignorant he is.
Oh yeah.
So Netanyahu hands him, "We have nominated you." I like Netanyahu. I'm up on charges of genocide and war crimes, and here I am going to nominate you, who just bombed the crap out of Iran, uh, a Nobel Peace Prize application, basically. I'm going to nominate a nomination. Idiotic. Anyway,
Yeah.
have a good weekend. See if you can forget world events. They're going to impose themselves on you, so try not to let them do that for this weekend at least. Have a great
Yeah.
weekend.
Right.